Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Yevamos, Perek Vav, Chapter 6, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. Kohen Hedget, a regular Kohen, an ordinary Kohen. We're not talking about the Kohen Gadol now. We're talking about a regular Kohen. Well, Yisa Islandess. He may not marry a woman that is referred to as an islandess. Now, an islandess means a woman who will never physically mature. That's the way here they explain it. That's how they define it. And they explain in the notes, that is, she does not grow pubic hairs, nor does she develop the physical characteristics, of a mature woman, whatever those exact signs are. This shows that she can never have children. Okay, that's an islandess. An islandess means she does not physically develop, and that is a sign that she will not be able to have children. Says the Mishnah, a Kohen cannot marry an islandess. He may not marry such a woman unless he already has a wife and children. The point is that he cannot marry her if she can't have children, because a man has an obligation of pru'ervu. He has an obligation to have children. Okay, so therefore he can't marry her if he doesn't have a wife or children. If he has a wife and children, he already has one second, right. He either has children or he's married to a woman who can have children. Therefore, that means that he is going to, be able to perform the mitzvah, and therefore we say that he may marry the islandess. Now, this prohibition of marrying the islandess is not it is not just 1 second. Yeah, okay. The point is that the islandess can't have children. Therefore, if at the end of the day he has children, or he can have children because he's married to another woman, there is no problem marrying this woman. Now, this prohibition, what we're saying here about not marrying, we said a Kohen can't marry an islandess. The reason we just gave is a reason that applies not only to a Kohen, it applies to anyone. It doesn't just apply to a Kohen. It's not only a Kohen has the mitzvah pru'ervu, every man has a mitzvah pru'ervu. And therefore, essentially, any man really may not marry this woman. The reason why we're talking about a Kohen is because the next opinion cited in the Mishnah has an opinion that deals specifically with a Kohen. And therefore, the Mishnah started with the word Kohen. But essentially, this first opinion, this first halacha, about not being permitted to marry an islandess, is going to be a prohibition to any man. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says, Af al pi sheyesh le'isho banim. If a man has a wife and children, Lo Yisa islandess. He may not marry the islandess. Why? Shehi Zaina ha'amura b'Torah. Because she is what the Torah is referring to when the Torah says a Kohen may not marry a Zona. The Torah says specifically by Kohanim, a woman who is characterized as a Zona is a woman that a Kohen cannot marry. Now, a Zona does not mean in the Torah's context, does not mean what we use the word Zona, what very often the word Zona is used for. It is not just we. I mean, it's used in many places in the Torah. Zona means a woman who is a prostitute. In the context of the Kohen, it doesn't mean that specifically. It does mean a woman, as they explained on here. Zona means a promiscuous woman. That's what a Zona means. Now, according to Yehuda, that definition of Zona, that definition of promiscuous, goes as far as a woman who cannot have children. To cohabit with a woman who cannot have children is promiscuous. She is a promiscuous woman. She didn't do anything wrong. She's not doing anything wrong. But the fact that her cohabitation cannot produce children means that she is considered a promiscuous woman. Her cohabiting has no purpose of producing children. It can never produce children. And therefore, she is definitely defined as a promiscuous woman. Not again in a negative sense, but just in the sense that...
Not considered normal?
Excuse me?
Not considered normal?
It's not regular.
I think
It's not regular, but the point is that she falls under the category of zona, not because she's doing anything wrong, but just because her cohabitation has no purpose. And therefore she is categorized as a zona, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, she falls under the Torah's prohibition of a Kohen marrying a zona. This would not be a prohibition for somebody who's not a Kohen. Somebody who's not a Kohen, the issue is pru'ervu. Can he fulfill his mitzvah or not? So if he has another wife, or has he had children, he can marry the islandess. A Kohen, according to Yehuda, can never marry an islandess because she falls under the category of a zona. Excuse me. The Chachamim say, Ein zona ella. The only woman who falls under the category of zona prohibited to a Kohen is not an islandess, but giyares, a convert, umishachreres, a freed woman slave, a female convert, a freed woman slave, v'shanivala bilas nus, and one who cohabited in a forbidden act. So let's go through each one of these. The third example of that she cohabited in a forbidden way, that we already had before. If she cohabits with anybody who's prohibited to her, whether it's a prohibition, whether it carries a death punishment with it, that is a woman who has that kind of act even once is a zona. And therefore, and even if she did it unintentionally, she didn't realize it was wrong to do.
This is zona considered the other way.
I'm not sure, Jimmy. 1 second. Now, the point here is that she committed an act that was forbidden. If she didn't commit a forbidden act, right? Let's say she cohabited with someone, but it wasn't a prohibition. It wasn't a prohibition. It was there were. Let's say she was unmarried. Okay, according to Torah, there's no Torah prohibition on that. To be frank, okay, and therefore she didn't do anything. She didn't do a forbidden act. And therefore, she doesn't become a zona because of that. Just because she has already cohabited, and maybe not in the most proper way, doesn't make her a zona. It has to be a prohibited act. That makes her a zona. That's the third example that the Chaim say makes a woman a zona. The other two are giyares and mishachreres. A giyares, also a woman who converts, is also, meaning if she converts after a certain age, she also falls under the category of zona, and that is because that before she became Jewish, there is an assumption that the behavior amongst the people before she is married is they act promiscuously, and therefore you have to kind of she's considered a zona because she came from a group of people that act promiscuously. The same thing in Evan, same thing a servant, a slave. Slaves is known, even Jewish slaves. The Gemara talks about they acted promiscuously. And therefore, because of that kind of behavior that exists within from where they come from, the Torah categorizes them as a zona. But if you're talking about a Jewish woman, even if this Jewish woman has cohabited in a way that was inappropriate, that does not make her a zona. And therefore, says the Chachamim, islandess does not fall under any of these examples. That islandess is not a zona. Therefore, the Chachamim say that a Kohen is going to be just like any other man. If he doesn't have a wife or children, he cannot marry the islandess. If he has a wife who can bear children, or if he has children already, has children from from a previous wife, then he may marry the islandess. No difference between a Kohen or between a regular person, according to halacha. Okay. All right, so now, the Chofetz Chaim, again, going back to something, this is a long paragraph, where he's talking about that you cannot accept Lashon Hara even from someone you believe like two. And he explained that in a situation, there is a situation where we have previously mentioned that you can accept the testimony from someone who you trust as two. But that's talking about if this person actually saw something, right? He saw something that really would establish a person. If it would be true, it would establish a person as a rasha, someone who's wicked. You saw this person do something wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. There's no excuses to think that it was okay. He absolutely did something brazenly wrong. You saw it. What you saw categorizes him as someone who is a rasha, as someone who is wicked. who essentially, if it could be established, you could believe that he did something wrong. The thing is, you're the only one who knows it. So now you're going to go over to somebody else and tell them about it. Can they accept it from you? What can they do? Are you allowed to go tell it over to people? So the answer is that you can tell it to someone who trusts you like two people. If this person trusts you like two people, you can go over to that person and tell him, again, if there's some kind of constructive purpose. It's the person's Rebbe. It's the person who's going to try to get other people to stay away from him, from this person. So there, where essentially what you're saying isn't Lashon Hara, essentially, and now the question is, though, can you tell it to other people, because whether they can accept or hear it or not, the answer is, if they will trust it like two people, you can go ahead and say it to that person. But if we're talking about something that you cannot say if it would be true, wouldn't it be Lashon Hara? Whether it's something because it's something that you're not supposed to say because maybe the person doesn't know. There's some way of giving him the benefit of the doubt. He didn't realize it was wrong. He didn't know it was wrong. Or it's something that he didn't do wrong. He has a lack of a certain quality. Whatever it may be, or you talk about what he did in the past or what his parents did in the past. All that kind of stuff is absolute Lashon Hara, and therefore hearing it from someone who you trust as like two doesn't help you. Then the Chofetz Chaim adds, besides the fact that if you accept this Lashon Hara from this person, you trust him like two, right? But you're not allowed to accept it. And you do accept it. Number one, you have that prohibition of accepting Lashon Hara. Number two, you also have on your record the fact that you have transgressed the prohibition of lifnei iver leisitein mechshol, in front of a blind person to put a stumbling block, which means you're not allowed to cause another person to sin. So here's this guy, right? He's coming to tell you Lashon Hara, right? So not only did you accept the Lashon Hara, but you actually caused him to keep speaking, because if you wouldn't be his audience, he wouldn't be saying it. And actually, like he says, the ilu loyhaya writes lishmayim if you wouldn't listen to the guy, he wouldn't come to the yisser. So it's not like I didn't tell him to speak Lashon Hara. It's his problem. No, it's not. It's your problem. He shouldn't be speaking Lashon Hara, but you shouldn't enable him. And if you do enable him, you have transgressed the prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of someone. And now the not only that, he says, look at it in a more serious way. This guy, if somebody comes over and tells you Lashon Hara, right, and you don't accept it, all right. So he spoke Lashon Hara. That's a problem. But at least it didn't accomplish anything. At least it didn't hurt anybody. But if you speak Lashon Hara and that people accept that Lashon Hara about the person, that means that what he did accomplish something. That actually makes what he did worse. He didn't just talk, he actually damaged someone. That actually increases the severity of his sin. So if you accept the Lashon Hara, not only have you enabled him to speak Lashon Hara, you've actually made his Lashon Hara accomplish something. You made it do something. You made it come out. It came out that what he said was accepted by someone, and that person was actually degraded in that person's eyes. That means Lashon Hara that he spoke was worse, and you enabled that. You made that happen. So therefore, the Chofetz Chaim is stressing the fact that when you accept Lashon Hara from a person, not only are you transgressing the prohibition of accepting Lashon Hara, you're also transgressing the prohibition of causing someone to stumble. Because what you're doing is you're enabling him to speak Lashon Hara, and if you accept what he says, you've even increased the severity of what he did, because what he did now actually accomplished something. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.